To create a new model using the Model Builder, we go to the Analysis tool set, and within there we can find the Model Builder. We click it, and here now in our View panel we can see there is now an empty canvas with our model in there. I would encourage you to instantly go to the properties and give the model a proper name. In our case, let's call it Clip Buffer 1, just to have a name. And it's a really good idea to give the label the same name as your name inside, because when we say OK now, first of all, you can see here this is the name of the model. And also, when we save this model now, where is this model existed now? Where does it reside in? And if we go to the catalog window, and under our Model Builder toolbox, there we see now here is also our model. So this is where it resides. This is where you would go back in if you were to close this up and you wanted to open this up again. Then you go in here and you go to Edit, and you back to where you were before. You could also, instead of starting a Model Builder window in Analysis, you can also simply say in your toolbox, you can right click and say, I want a new model, and there would be now another model that we can now name and parameterize and everything else. We don't want to do that right now, and I'm just removing this now. So here in our Model Builder tools, we see here, of course, the save option, the property options. We can export this, for instance, into a Python script directly. We'll talk about this later. Very importantly here, you can validate, you can reset your model, you can run your model. And then we have here additional tools that are available, such as, for instance, iterators. We'll get back to those again at a later stage. So let's build our model. I want to start off with clipping and buffering my rivers. So I have here my river file. I simply drag it into my canvas and let go. Input files are always in blue. Then I want to also use my study area. I drag it somewhere else. We can always place them somewhere else differently later. And now I would like to add a tool. And I'd like to add the clip tool. And I can take this tool and I can simply drag it in place. So this clip tool right now is grayed out. It would be in color if it was properly parameterized. It is not yet. So of course the clip tool needs an input file and a clip file. So all we need to do is we can simply make a connection by dragging our cursor over and let go. And now the Model Builder wants to know, well, is this an input feature or is it a clip feature? Of course, a very important part. So in our case, this is our input feature. So I simply select that. And now I'm doing the same thing with my study area polygon, and this is my clip feature. I'm using this to clip things out. Now we have color, so now actually we can run this model. This is already a properly parameterized, very primitive model. We can decide if we want to move our icons around so they make a little bit more sense. And now the next thing I want to do is I want to buffer the clipped file by a certain distance. So let's go to the buffer tool. And I'm using this as my input file, input features. And now, because there's no distance right now, I double click in here and that opens up the regular toolbox, and I can now give it an output file name that is correct in this case. We can leave it. I want to have my distances in meters, and right now let's buffer by 200 meters. Full side buffering, rounded around, and I want to have a full dissolve. So it is of course important that you know your tools when you parameterize. And now we have all input parameters necessary to run this. Again, I want to put my output file here underneath each other, so I want to organize it here by files, input files and output files, and here my geoprocessing tools. And now you ask yourself, what is the next step? The next step is to clip out my land cover. So we will need the land cover somewhere, and I have to do another clip. So this is my clip file, and this is my input feature file, and the output file now is here. So what we do now in one workflow is take a river file, use a study area, clip them out. Here's the clipped file, buffer the clipped file by a distance that is right now hard-coded. We'll talk about this later. Then create the buffered river file and use that buffered river file to clip out our land cover, creating a new land cover file. So right now what we can do instantly is we go back to our model builder and we can run the file. Let's do that. While the model builder is running, whatever process is in red is currently running. Now it's buffering. And now it's clipping again. And we are done. Succeeded. The last line in our information window is always important. That's where you would find out if it was successfully executed. You will also see here within the model builder that the geoprocesses that were done and the new output files that were created now all have a shadow around there. So that is a sign that they were done and properly executed. To reset the model for another run, we would now simply say use the validate button. So where is our resulting file? When we hover over it, it tells us where the file was written to, but it was not added to my table of contents. That is something we would like to do. I would only like to add the resulting file to my table of contents, not the in-between ones. We can achieve that by right-clicking and saying add to display. Here now, already instantly, it was added to the display. And here is our buffered land cover file within our study area. So let me save this model as we have it right now. And again, as I said, if you want to be done with this, you can exit out of this window. You can always go back in and say edit this file, and you are where you were when you saved it. Let's improve this model. I would like to use the symbology of my original land cover file and apply it to this one here automatically. There's a way to do that. Well, we can search our toolbox for symbology, and there we'll find a tool, apply symbology from a layer. That sounds good. Let's drag it into our model builder. And let's see what it requires. The input layer is clear, so we can make the connection here. Input layer. What else do we need? We need a symbology layer, and I happen to have one that I have created. Let me quickly show you how it was created. I wanted to make a symbology layer here with my land cover file. Right click, sharing, and save as layer file. And then you simply fill out the form, give it a name, and put it a place, and off you go. So I've done this. We find our symbology layer, and I hit OK. So please note that these two icons here look very much the same. Here is our polygon file that has been clipped, and here, as you can see at the extension, is our layer file. And so it's not the polygon file, it's a layer file. They happen to look the same, which may be confusing. And the last thing we need to do is, now I have a new output file that I want to have on display rather than the original one. Let me add this here to our display as well. And let's save this and run it. Last line succeeded, or good. Everything is with a shadow, so that's also good. It was completed. And here is now added automatically to our drawing order is our correctly symbolized output file. There we go. So now the next step is to make this model generic. Right now everything is hard-coded. Input file is hard-coded. We can change that. And all we have to do is right-click on one of the input parameters and say make it a parameter. Then a P will appear next to the element, and that means it will become an input parameter. We will see the impact just in a moment. I want to change my input clip file as well, make that a parameter to keep my study area flexible. What if I wanted to change my buffer distance? We can change that by right-clicking and creating a variable from a parameter, and I want to change my distance. You see, any of the other buffer parameters that can be set in the tool can be made an input parameter, so you can make the changes. I only want to be able to change the distance, so I make that a parameter, and it just added the parameter, puts it on one default location, and then we should move it. Right now the distance is hard-coded as we had it before from the tool to be 200 meters. And of course, we want to make this now a parameter to be queried when we start running the model. The only other thing that we may want to change is our symbology. If we have multiple symbologies, we want to be able to select that and make that a parameter. And our final output file, we want to be able to control the output file name as well. And let's save this model. So here now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different input parameters, and they only become effective if we run the model not from here, but from within our toolbox. So we save this model. I get completely out of this model. I go to catalog. Here is a model, and I can either right click and say open, or I simply double click. And here is now our tool that we have just created. We have just created this very tool. So here now our input file should be changed, and our buffer file, our clip file should be changed. And right now how we have it, of course, our names are very confusing. We don't want to keep those names. So what we can do is we can change this. Let's make this more meaningful. Go back to edit. In here now, instead of saying rivers, so I rename this. And we can just call this input feature. And we can call this the clip feature. And we can call this the distance is correct. This would be our output feature. And this here is our layer file. So now we're making the names more generic. And I made this generic because it's being the clipped file, to which later on we'll just add the symbology to create the same file name. So I'm making this one here my parameter file. I say save, and let's see how our tool now looks like. So here, input feature, you can choose any input feature you like. Clip feature, whatever study area polygon you may have, whatever distance you want to buffer by, whatever symbology file you may have, and you can have control of your output feature file name. And then within here now, again, we simply hit the run button. And here is our result. So let me show you how you can control the order of your parameter settings in here. We do that by going to our ModelBuilder. To our properties. And here within our parameter settings, if you wanted to change the name here, that's where you do it. And here are 5 parameters, starting with 0 and then just numbered through. Here is what they do. Some parameters may be required, some may not be. And for instance, I have my input feature, I have my clip feature, I have my output feature. I want to do that first. So if I wanted to move this around, I simply right click and say move up, and I want to move it one more up. And so now I have here my input, my clip, my output feature, and then my distance layer, and then my layer file. I want to change anything else in here? No. Let's save this. And now if I double click here and we open up the layer, now we have our input feature, our clip feature, and our output feature, and then the distance and the layer file. So you can control what's happening within your tool. That's all for today. Until next time.